Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Superintendent Jordan, you ready to rock and roll?
It's a little more.
You ready, David? Awesome. Good evening, Milpitas. I'm your 2025 Board President, Chris Norwood. Welcome to this special meeting of Milpitas Unified School District Board of Education. We appreciate your attendance, which align with the guidelines set forth by the Ralph M. Brown Act for Open Meetings. Tune into our hybrid-style meetings online on either Zoom or YouTube or in person inside our boardroom here at Randall World Languages School. Public comments can be made while you're logged into Zoom or if you are in person. YouTube, however, is a listen-only option. If you're unable to do either of these, please visit our written public comments webpage for instructions on how to submit your written public comment. One public comment per person is allowed for each item. This time I have to call the meeting to order. Trustee Naka, Trustee Dr. Naka.
Here.
Trustee No.
Here.
Board Clerk Robert Jung.
Here.
Vice President Yip Chuan.
Here.
Board President Chris Norwood here. Request to review and approve the open session agenda.
Move to approve.
Move to approve the open session agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Seeing none, motion carries. Flag salute. Ready? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Comments from the public. Scott, are there any comments from the public?
We do have a raised hand online. We're going to go over to that. Give me 1 second. Lina, we're enabling your audio. Take yourself off mute. You now have 2 minutes for your public comment. Go right ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, my name is Lena Conquith-Coon, and I am the TKK Extensive Support Needs teacher at Burnett. I would like to address the current decision to dismantle the TK through 6 ESN continuum at Burnett and move the class I currently teach to a different school site on the other side of town. This continuum has been active since the 2018-2019 school year, the year I moved from Spangler to Burnett as their third ESN class, because I believed in the program shift that was presented. Over the years, I have developed a respectful and collaborative working relationship with our Gen Ed, Kinder, TK, and 2A ESN teachers. The purpose of the continuum was designed with students at the center. Students with severe and profound needs would attend the school in their community with their neighbors and siblings for the duration of their elementary education to the fullest extent possible. That means less transitions from year to year. Families would get to know their school staff, and the school and its students would get to know a child from their community with a disability, someone they may see but never interact with. This year, I am in a classroom that's next door to Ms. Wynn's TK Gen Ed class. Due to a proximity and collective belief that inclusion supports all students, we have been able to provide the inclusion piece in our classroom daily. The decision to move the ESN class without involving the stakeholders such as myself, Ms. Wynn, site administrators, or families is a missed opportunity to understand the learning that is happening at Burnett with our youngest and most underrepresented students, or how the move would impact families. I believe any change at this stage without equity of voice would not foster a sense of trust, but further widen the division within the special education community at MUSD. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we have one more additional online. Allison Nguyen, we enabled your audio. Please take yourself off mute. You have 2 minutes for your public comment.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Hi, my name is Allison Huynh, and I am the general education TK teacher at Burnett. I would like to address the current decision to transfer Lena Konfutakun's TKK ESN class to a different school site. Moving her class to a school site on the other side of town would negatively affect her students and their families, as they would no longer be attending the school that is with their neighbors in their community. Within Burnett, Lena has become an integral member of our school, and she and I have been able to implement inclusion within our classes. Every day, our students spend at least 30 minutes together. Through this, my students have learned empathy toward peers. This includes neurodivergent students and students with other disabilities, who they may see but do not often have the opportunity to interact with. They have also learned how to communicate with others verbally and non-verbally, and understand that everyone has varying needs and expresses themselves differently. In our district, we strive to have inclusion in our classrooms, and we have been implementing exactly that before it has been universally adopted across our district. Moving Lena's class would negatively affect my students, as you'll be taking away an invaluable opportunity to learn and practice compassion and understanding from some of our youngest learners in the school district. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And that was the last online public comment, and no written today.
Okay, we have no written. So there were 2 public comments regarding the same matter. I'm sure that staff heard the request, right? There are some matters that come to public comment that are in the purview of the board, and there are some matters that come to public comment that are in the purview of the executive cabinet to be able to comment and communicate back regarding those issues. So thank you again, everyone, for being here in the special board meeting. We have an item for discussion today on our agenda to review the public comments to the board on the meeting that was held on March 11th, 2025. As we all know, there was a lot that happened last week at the board meeting, and we heard a lot of different things. Some of it pertinent to negotiation, some of it beyond negotiation, and because of the duration of the time, we didn't have ample time to kind of digest it a little bit or even have the time to talk about it. So I wanted to make sure that we had a chance to come back and talk about some of the comments that we heard so that the cabinet can hear it, and then where we can find where we fit and some of the things that they asked relative to all the public comments were made. That's the discussion that we're going to have today. So there was a request for you to either rewatch the video and the public comments or to look at the packet of public comments and then provide ones that stood out to you, and then bring those to the attention of this conversation so that we can decide if there's anything actionable that the board can do moving forward to strengthen the district. So with that said, I'd like to start with you. Well, are there any opening comments at this point regarding our discussion? Okay, with that said, who'd like to begin the discussion in terms of what public comments written or otherwise stood out to them that they want to bring to the attention of the board and executive cabinet?
I can start. Clearly, there were many comments, and what I would like to ask is that we take a look at some of those comments and understand. To me,
Which comments, if you could be specific, because that was part of the work.
yeah, there were a lot. I guess in general, I felt like there were some potential for misinformation, and I want to make sure that we have clarity around I'll give one example. I think one particular person indicated there was a disparity on some of our staff or managers specifically who got both components in terms of, I believe it was health, the health benefit. I forget what was the other one, but someone will remind me. But I just want to get clarification if that was indeed the case, and if it was indeed the case, we made a decision or someone made a decision. We like to understand that, right? And I like to get some clarification on, you know, someone mentioned superintendent's salary. So, I mean, there was a whole bunch of stuff. All I'm suggesting is let's, you know, where the areas where there was confusion on that, let's clarify so that everyone understands what the actual, what actually happened and what was actually given in, or what is the salaries and stuff like that. That makes sense? Or do I have to go through specifically
No,
on it?
so if there's a reference, I know that there was a public comment regarding superintendent's salary.
Yep.
There was also a public comment regarding management receiving more than
Yes,
everyone else.
exactly, right.
Okay, so that is a particular item that we're concerned about. That
Yeah,
was
so
public
let's
comment.
just get some clarification. I'm not saying one way or another, just get some clarification. What is the case, and then kind of help me as one board member to understand how we got there, right?
Okay, thank you.
Those are my two questions as well. The salary and, you know, they mentioned the $100 medical cap and the disparities that you mentioned. Those were the two top ones that I have too. We can get some clarification on, you know, was that really happening?
Or did that happen?
Did that
right?
happen?
Right,
Correct.
It
Correct.
is, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
that's-
Okay, are there any other,
Board President Norwood.
Yes.
You know, you mentioned in your opening comments as far as, last week, we heard a lot of comments from both the teachers and our classified
Yep.
staff as well. And when we look at holistically, Milpitas Unified School District, we need every single person to help provide the best education possible to our kids. And when we hear comments like that last week, there's some inherent emotional trauma tied to a lot of the comments.
okay,
And as a district that looks at how we support our students with the multi-tiered systems of support, this is one of those opportunities for us as a board to practice that as far as in community engagement and healing. And so I hear the other comments from our board members as far as the specifics, but pulling back on this, because we are all educated adults, we see the numbers, we have to make tough decisions based on some of the facts and the data. But what I heard last week was that there's more to the data, there's some stories behind that data, as
Yeah.
well as stories behind that number, as far as why are we investing the way we are with our budget to certain areas. And that's something that we talk about holistically throughout the year, not just in the negotiation period. And that's why we have these board meetings for engagement, for public comment, because it's a continuum that we continue to strive for all in our district. And that's my initial thoughts.
so if I were to repeat what I heard you say was that there's a lot going on. There were a number of different types of comments. Just like we have a multi-tier system of support for students, it's not clear that we have this, I don't know if we can call it comparable for our employees, but there needs to be multiple levels of support for them as we deal with these certain times during negotiations, when there are changes in the district for whatever reason, how to make sure stakeholders are engaged, because we did have that public comment about a decision that was made at a school site, right? That's not in our purview, but it was brought to the board, right, to be aware of that particular issue. No, I appreciate that. Dr. Nocte, do you have any opening comments?
Yes, President Norwood. Thank you, Scott, first of all, for providing the packet for us. It was really helpful. And thank you, everybody, for being here. We really appreciate each of your time here. And based on the in-person and the comments which were presented in the packet, I mean, definitely I can see that there are mental health issues which are raising in our district, and clearly the 1% was a one-time bonus. We couldn't afford to lose the psychologists. So those were some of the comments, the gist of the comments that I could read through from the packet, and also the classified employees are also not happy with the 1% one time. So, and also the MTA does not want to put the district in the financial disarray. So I can see that there are few questions that are pretty straightforward, and I think there needs to be more transparency. I really appreciate Dorothy to be out there with Damon and trying to present all the numbers and explain why we are doing anything and everything in a certain way for the district. So if there is anything in specific that there is a group that would like to understand better or to be able to educate themselves better to know why the numbers are the way they are and what is it that we are trying to offer as a district going forward, to build on that, probably, it's more of the transparency and more of the clarity that I would strongly suggest from our end to be able to let them know.
So you talked about, from the public comments, you heard that there is a need for additional transparency in what areas?
Well, the COLA, which was 8% and which is now like 1.07, probably some of the teachers and some of the staff members have been curious about the numbers, and probably they need more information about, why we are trying to do certain decisions. Why are we trying to emphasize on certain areas to be more focused? So I think those should be explained, because different sites had different opinions about their thought process. That's what I could see based on the packet of information, President Albert. And also, I think the measure Q, some of them were like, we really worked hard on that, and we really need to be getting the benefit out of all the hard work that we did. So all those questions, I probably think some of our district teachers and in certain schools, I could see that they needed more clarity. And
So communication, information about the budget, how the budget process works. You're talking about from like it coming down from the state, or Dorothy does a budget presentation to the board. I don't know how that information is shared with the school district staff and those types of things. So I think that's a conversation with the superintendent in their association's roundtable, or however that communication works. But that is a question, Superintendent, how is the information about the budget shared throughout the district? Or the budget process, how was that shared?
Bless you. In general, it's shared through the board study sessions, and in the past, we would share in negotiations. We did that again this year. However, we also did a little bit of sharing at one of the association's roundtables, but we've made a commitment to our associations that in our upcoming associations roundtables that we will really spend like the whole time looking into the budget and answering questions, and also getting input about how dollars are spent. So with this recent negotiation sessions, we, as the district decided, district leaders agreed that we want to be even more inclusive by making sure our associations are a part of what we do with the budget, and that will come during associations roundtable time.
So if I appreciate the conversation with the associations roundtable and being more transparent. But the overall process, like for example, in one of the comments that I have is that there's, and I'll see if I can find it. They said that when we agreed to do the bond, it was going to go 100% to teachers. And I was like, well, bonds are for buildings, right? So there's a disconnect there in understanding B, bond for buildings, P, parcel tax, right? So I don't know if I could interpret that they meant parcel tax, right? I just had to read it for what it was, right? And so how do we make sure that, regardless of what they want to present or share at public comment, but how do we make sure that information is disseminated? And I'm not saying during negotiations, because we do have board meetings, these meetings are recorded, but there are some disconnects in terms of everyone having the information that they need as a part of this process, so that we can figure out how to solve these problems together. Because that's what we have to do. We have to solve the problems together. So I appreciate Dr. Naka's comment. And then there was also a comment, let me see. I think there was also, and I want to open up, as this is the board's discussion with the superintendent, I do want to ask the question about some of the different categories that some of the conversations were. There were younger teachers talking about they grew up in Milpitas. Milpitas teachers took care of them. They were a part of the community, and now how can we help them continue to be a part of this community because they've come back to be teachers in the MUSD.
Yep.
There were comments from tenured teachers that have been here a very, very long time that said that they didn't feel valued. And I know you talked about, Dr. Naka, I know you talked about when we had the super COLA, we did 9, and then also with previous discussions in terms of how much of the COLA is actually possibly could be used for salaries, which isn't the full COLA. So still trying to figure that part out as well, in terms of how we continue to learn about this and educate the community at the same time. I would ask the board, do you think that that more people want to know more information about what we're doing or how all this works? And is that a responsibility of the executive cabinet and the superintendent to figure out how to execute?
Well, I mean, as you point out, I mean, if we're going to be successful, we all have to work together. And if we have to work together, we should all have the same information. Cannot have different understandings and be successful, right?
Well, I don't know if that's, everybody has a perspective. It's not a matter of, so are you talking about the perspective that they have? Because we could all have the same understanding with a different perspective, right? None of us, we don't work for the district, right? We don't deal with the day-to-day and those types of things, right? So how could, if we had the same understanding of the budget but different perspectives?
Okay, well, let me clarify. I'm saying that in order for our district to be successful, our teachers are classified, all the employees, whether they're management or non-management, as well as the board, needs to have a common understanding. If we say the COLA is, in order for us to be out of red, as an example, in order for us to be out of the red, we need basically a 4.0, 4-point-something COLA so that we're not in the red. Everyone should understand what that means. And if they don't understand what that means, then we have work to do to make sure that everyone has that same common understanding.
So
that's all I'm saying.
Right. And building on top of that, what if they have that understanding, but they have an additional historical context that goes beyond that understanding?
Okay, So there are facts, right, that says, in order for this district to be out of the red, 4% is needed. There's history that says that, hey, we've gotten more in the past, and how did we apply that? And we can have those conversations. But the fact is, that hopefully the numbers don't lie, that if 4% is what we need to stay afloat, then everyone should have that understanding, at least in my opinion, unless I'm missing something, right?
No, and that's why each individual board member has their opinion.
Yep.
And each individual board member has a vote.
Absolutely.
And here was that public comment that I had. I remember when we were active in promoting passing the bond, which was passed, was specifically being raised to give us a raise. Where is that money going, and why did the teachers do all that work and then have the board is going to say there is no money for a raise, right? So when we hear those types of things, we're trying to figure out we're trying to figure out how to, that even though there isn't a response, we're thinking about the process, right? Like, how do people know how this district is running on their behalf so they can come and be prepared for the students? One of the comments that kind of stayed in my mind was that you can't get to the students without supporting the teachers. That was said a couple of times, right? And although we try to do things for that process to happen from the board perspective, but sometimes it seems like that message isn't coming through, or that's the things that we're wrestling with, right? So I'll add another thing on my public comments. So I've been a proud MUSD teacher since 2022. My oldest attended K-12 schools, MUSD schools, and my youngest is currently enrolled in the 10th grade. So here we have a public comment from a teacher and a parent, right? So it goes beyond just being an employee of the district. I love our district and schools and staff. I've been an active participant in various district endeavors, including election measures, and want only good things for students in MUSD. So not only is this a teacher, a parent, but someone who's actively involved, because we've all walked, we know who's out there when it comes to the bond and the parcel taxes and those types of things, right? So this is a person that's also involved in that work. It says, I hope the board continues to see value in retaining high-quality teachers and the way to do things that through compensation. In 2018, my kids were added to my health plan out of necessity at a cost of $876 a month, not including the summer share. As of December 2024, it has risen to $1,348 a month, right? So in 6 years, it's gone up $500, not including the summer share. As of January 2025, I now pay directly through Kaiser, as it is much cheaper option for a similar level of care. Paying teachers at the same rate as admin and classified staff health insurance should be a minimum and a given when we are hardworking and we're dedicated to this career we love, and ask that you show value to our health and to our labor. So when I read that, the thing that stood out to me was the fact that I didn't know that there were plans that the teachers could possibly get that would be cheaper than what we get as a district, because we've always been told that we're in these collective pools and we're getting the best prices. So here's a person that teacher, parent, volunteers for things, experiencing this healthcare thing, and then had to go out on their own.
No, I read it as instead of using the UHC, which is more expensive, the teacher went to Kaiser, which is less expensive.
It was a choice.
Right. So you say more. I don't see that UHC. So tell me on that, please. Thank you.
Because the teacher said.
Oh, go to the mic.
She's in the room.
Oh, I didn't know if
we
you
don't do
were-
that,
yeah.
right? We don't.
So the teacher said, as of December, it rose to $1,348 a month, not including summer share. So as of January, now it pays directly through Kaiser, as it's much cheaper. So we have the opportunity as employees to either use use Kaiser or UHC. UHC is more expensive. Kaiser, the district strives to pay full benefits at the Kaiser level for an individual. Oh, okay. Oh, so then President Norwood did interpret it the correct way. Oh, thank you. Okay.
So, just to restate, the fact that there's this effort and then that they can go outside to get a cheaper health plan, does that mean we should be relooking at or how often do we look at renegotiating our health plans on an ongoing basis? And is that something that is worked with the associations about, hey, we haven't redone our health plan in a while, we need to go back out and shop? Is that a as needed thing? Is that something that happens every year?
Dorothy?
So our health plan is through the Santa Clara County SIG JPA and Santa Clara County School Insurance Group. And so they look at the rate every year and they get a comparable quotes from other vendors or other carrier that can help us with the costs. This year, our Kaiser costs went down a little bit, but the other, the HMO went up.
UHC.
Yes.
So what about the opportunity for us to examine what it would cost if we went directly to Kaiser and UHC versus going through the Joint Powers Association?
So that means we have to be self-insured. We get out of the JPA and we become self-insured. And then we will have to negotiate directly with the healthcare providers, the insurance on the costs. One of the reasons having a JPA is more effective because they have pools of districts to negotiate the cost down. But once we go out of the JPA and we go self-insured, we are only negotiating for the number of employees at Milpitas. And if not everyone, not all 1,000 positions or all the employees participate, then we have a lesser negotiating power because we're become smaller group.
So,
That's an option is
yeah.
to be a self-certified,
Understood.
self-insured.
right. But if one of our employees are able to find something cheaper, it would seem to me that we should have the ability for our employees to say, hey, can we take a look or ask our JPA to take a look specifically at, hey, I think I found something better. Can't we ask the JPA to take a look at that and see what's going on, right? I think that's reasonable to do.
So, go ahead. So agreeing with
and-
what you said, Rob, I hear you saying that when there are exceptions to lower prices, that information has to go bi-directional so that other employees could possibly know about those prices because
Right.
you're negotiating in bulk, right? You feel that the best deal for the district, not for the employees, whether we have single or married with
Family,
children,
right.
right? All the different health needs, right? So there has to be some sort of bi-directional communication that's shared if someone does shop outside, because we believe that we're providing them the best prices. Now, is there a bi-directional communication on that?
That would be under Assistant Soup James. I know that we used to do annual reviews of the benefits costs with our association leaders. I don't know if we still do that because of the JPA workings. I don't know what that is nowadays.
We recently met and plan to meet in the future. Sorry, it's part of the contract. But we do have plans to meet in the fall. And I think what did you call it? Bidirectional communication. That's not exactly what happens in the meeting. In the meeting,
Which meeting?
this meeting that I'm talking about,
With the SKIPA, with the
the-
schools insurance group.
right? It is, they explain to us what the prices are, well, in this case, it already happened, but usually it's what you can look for. Price increases or decreases, they will share varied data. So they shared with us other districts outside of our JPAs, how they're doing. But it isn't a conversation of, hey, Stephanie, are you taking insurance through the school district? And if you're not, where are you getting insurance from? And what's your deal compared to our deal? It's not that kind of conversation. It's more of, how do we keep our rates down? So that's CSCA, MTA, and MMA. And the SIG sharing with us why prices are either staying the same or increasing.
Okay, and I guess the question that when I was referring to bidirectional, like for example, in this public comment, they said that they got a better rate. And are you saying that that information from this individual did not come back to the district for them to be aware that for a certain type of household, that there was a better rate outside of the district's plan?
I guess I would say that employees don't know that they can share that information, that we don't elicit that information from employees. So that's, yeah.
So, yeah, and that's what I was kind of encouraging, is that if our employees find something, this is all of us with the various different plans, right? It's, to me, getting that information, let's say to HR or to authority to say, hey, can we check this out, asking the JPA to check this particular carrier out seems a reasonable thing to do to me.
Well, it says there in the public in the comment that they went direct. So I guess what I'm leaning towards is, because we're in a pool, is it the goal for, we want the majority of the district employees to go through the pool because we get a better overall rate? Or we're already a part of the pool, so whether or not the district employees go through the pool or they go out on their own, we're still paying the same?
To me, it sounds, there's a better solution to all this, right, than going and negotiating with different JPAs and vendors, because we could say the same thing about reams of paper. Like the contract that we have with the vendor is one price, and all of a sudden, like the local store has a sale or discount, and it's a better price. And you can't really negotiate to get that price from a holistic standpoint because it's a short time. Now, when we're talking about an employee going direct and paying out of pocket for a lower rate, well, then the conversation should really be, well, what does the district do with those funds that would have been allocated to that individual if they had gone with the group plan, right? And that could just be a simple reimbursement with, like, receipts and taxes. Again, that's just
That's
one
a
way to look
question.
at it.
But that's a question, because do we know if that's happening or not?
We don't, right? But I'm just trying to update the conversation to, instead of negotiate, because when you negotiate, you have to give up something. So even if you ask JPAs to like look at a lower discount or anything, there has to be something that provides them incentive to want to switch it over more than just the lower price.
I'm not sure, what I hear you talking about is a cafeteria plan. I'm not sure if that would be something that would be part of negotiations or not. But it's something we could definitely look at.
Scott.
You had a,
Excuse me, our online audience cannot hear unless you speak into a microphone.
Stephanie Woodhams,
When everybody
public
looks at the audience,
comment that we're discussing. I am still covered under MUSD healthcare because as a single person, it's very much a wonderful system. When it's a family plan, that's where it's become like the costs just have continued to go up through the years. So I'm still covered through MUSD. It's my children now that it's cheaper to go through the direct healthcare. Just wanted to.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. Again, still along my thoughts, right? If they're going direct for the additional family members, and we would have provided that, whatever lower cost coverage to the group plan, again, where does that go? Where is that floating?
Yeah, so thank you, Superintendent, we would see that, as you had mentioned, this possibility of a discussion around a cafeteria plan, right? Right, that would be, does anyone else have any comments that they want to, because I have,
Yeah,
maybe because I was front and center, I got a whole bunch.
yeah, to elaborate, right? When
Okay.
we talk about cultural we, right, this is where we bring our thoughts together in regards to collaborating for solutions, not accusations. Because when you go the path of accusations, you're really building defenses and walls that make it very difficult to collaborate. And when we want to collaborate, you have to be open to ideas and thoughts and questions as far as like, hey, is this being done? What is being done? So that we can, to the point of Trustee Young, get the right information to really come together and make a appropriate proposal or decision.
Right.
And with that said, I'll go back to one of the comments here, and again, highlighting the point that Trustee Young was trying to make as far as, are they informed with their data? Well, and President Norwood, where you're saying like, they know the data, but maybe not the finer details. This particular comment was saying that they've been in the district teaching for 25 years. They've always seemed to have a positive relationship with both the districts and teachers and working together for the best for our students. The offer of 1% off schedule is the worst ever in my 25 years. Now, I remember seeing a chart that showed that in the past 25 years, there was definitely a worse offer than what's being stated there. However, historical context, right? You don't remember every single detail from the last 25 years.
Right.
And so I get the highlight of the point, but at the same time, it falls as far as when you know that what the appropriate data is, there's some misconceptions.
Right.
Right. No. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot of energy in these things and where folks are feeling and weeding through, you know, the feelings to determine the areas that we have. So here's another, for example, public comment. I'm a current special education teacher at Milpitas High School. I've been teaching for 9 years. During my career in this district, I have spearheaded the therapeutic RSP program, and now I'm teaching the special day class. Throughout my time in work in the district, I have not been supplied with curriculum and needed to build my own. Our district wholeheartedly believes that students in special ed should be given access to the same curriculum as general education. This follows a model of inclusion and has wide support throughout the district. However, as the board should know very well, it takes considerable effort to properly scaffold and accommodate the general education curriculum to be digestible and understandable for our special population. It is even more difficult when a class and curriculum that is designed for 11th graders is being taught to students who have 5th and 6th grade reading levels. As you can imagine, special education often needs to rework entire textbooks in order to make it accommodating to students. And then there's more here about writing their own curriculum. So while I recognize it was in the context of we were talking about discussions, all I kept hearing was that here's a teacher that is responsible for, or has taken it upon themselves to write curriculum. Now, whether or not that's accurate, or again, it's written, and these are the comments that we have. So it sounds like there's continuous work around curriculum in special education, or is this to be considered a one-off?
Go ahead.
I think it's challenging that students come in with different needs at different times. And so curriculum for neurodiverse students oftentimes needs modifications or changes in it to meet students where they are. We've worked hard to add curriculum and to ensure that all special education teachers have access to the general education curriculum as well. There was a period in time in my history here where that actually was not the case, and that was one of the efforts that we did do to ensure that our teachers did have that. But there is, frankly, there is a element of when you're working with neurodiverse students and you have curriculum, you do have to make changes in order to meet students at the level that they are. In addition to that, there is oftentimes intervention curriculum that is needed to support specific skills that students need as well. So we've added programs like Sunday and can't think of the math program right now. So there's a variety of them. We also looked at Teach Town, which is another program that we're using at the high school level this year. That is for our community-based instruction, our CBI students, or students that are in our extensive support needs. So I think it's something that we are always looking at, always room to grow in, but also something that we have focused on in the past several years.
I have a follow-up question regarding that. Because there's such variety of needs, have we taken a look at, technology, and I'll hate to use the word AI, but, is there opportunities to help the teachers make those adjustments in the curriculum for, special, for the kids who has different needs that would allow them to do it in a quicker fashion, given that they understand that right now this particular student can only do 5th grade, and yes, we're in high school, to have those hints or methods so that they can do those a lot quicker than what they're able to do by hand today.
Yes, I would say that those are opportunities that are out there. We have done some work. I know that for the new teacher orientation, I specifically did a training around Chat GPT and leveraging that. Also looking at Conmigo and looking at some of the tools that are in there. I think it's challenging to launch into AI or new platforms as a teacher as they are working to do the work at the same time exploring other alternatives. That is one of the areas that I do think is worth exploring further. And we have talked about that as an opportunity to help our staff, but there are definitely programs out there that can help you. There's levelers that will take a reading level, for example, that is at a higher grade level, and you say, please take this text, you extract it from, and then you put it in, and it could have it at a lower reading level. So there's a number of different resources out there. I think that is an opportunity, but that's also an opportunity that requires training. That takes the staff out of their classrooms, and then they have to make the time to apply that type of work. So, but yes, that's definitely out there, and tools that some of our teachers are currently using. So yeah, absolutely.
See you, Damon.
So this will connect to the greater issue in those stacks that you have on your desk or tables. There's a disconnect between what we say and what they feel. And so everything that Mary Jude is saying is accurate in the sense that we have them, but you have to really talk to the teachers to find out if it's effective and why teacher A or teacher B is creating their own curriculum. And that's the part that we keep missing as a district. And so that sentiment that I'm saying kind of crosses all of our areas, and that's what we have to get better at. So as you pull out more points, just think back to what I'm saying.
Question back to the training. Is there a cost to the training?
There are costs in training.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're a teacher of general education, you're a speech pathologist, an occupational therapist, a special education teacher. The costs are, one, they're out of class, and therefore they need a sub. Secondly, there's costs for, if you bring training in from experts outside, there's a cost for that. There's a cost related to whether it's virtual or online. If the training is offered after school, then we support our teachers with their attendance by paying them for their attendance. So there's definitely costs associated with professional learning. And currently, in our yearly schedule, there's not a lot of opportunities for that. You know, in the past, we've had I can speak for special ed. In the past, we had training once a month after school. We called it JAM for job-alike meetings. But then when we had the shift, we no longer could do those meetings after school because there was a shift in the contract to support less time after school. And we used to take, our special ed teachers got to split their time. If they went to a special ed meeting, then they didn't go to one of the staff meetings to balance that out for them. But when that shift happened, the sites needed them on the sites for the time that was left. So then we this year had to build our training into the day so that we could get that training built in. So we tried a new model. We asked everybody last year what was their preference. Knowing that this was coming up, we met in our meetings and we had people decide what they wanted. We met with multiple meetings to get their input. We designed this year's training based on the feedback that was given to us by the special education, speech pathologists, psychologists. There's somebody I'm missing, but yeah, so we did do that last year to solicit their feedback.
So does that connect to, like, when you guys talk about sunshining articles? When you guys come, like, there's an article situation where folks open up articles and what can be done when? That was affected in terms of the professional development time?
That impact. I mean, I think that's probably is a Damon question. It's always a balance. You're trying to balance all of the things that everybody needs. I will say that was an outcome for our special educators in terms of us trying to figure out how we could support their needs during the day and how we could support them during their workday. It's not necessarily a negative thing in the sense that it's a shift. It's just a shift. That's not good or bad. We still need to do the training, but we had to look at how we were going to do it differently to make sure that we could train them on the things that they needed, as well as support them in a way that is in alignment with the contract.
So what I also hear in context was that, because we've been in CSACE for how many years?
3.
More than 3.
Right. And so when I hear what you guys are working on, that when you guys do that presentation, I'm like, okay, that's what we're going to get to do, assuming the previous year's model that you're building upon. And what you're saying is that there could be adjustments where we're not building on the previous year's model because of schedule changes that could be preventative, not intentionally preventative, but could be preventative from the work that you may have started 2 years ago when you had a plan to move us away from being in CSACE.
I would say,
Preeti, if you could chime in on that as well, if I'm making sense.
I think it's a yes and a no, because I think that our work continues to move forward. So that's the we're building upon. What I would say is different is how we're going about it. So it's like we've got the targets of what we're working on, the trainings of what we're working on, the supports that we're putting in place that we're working on. But the way we approached it last year is different than the way we're approaching it this year. But the content and the things that we need to work on haven't shifted.
Okay.
Want to add on?
I think, like, what I hear you asking, President Norwood, is or sharing is your assumption that every year we're building upon last year, and you're checking.
Especially with the CSACE, right? We were trying to get out of, we have this conversation like every year, and when you guys give me a plan, I'm assuming that we're going to be able to execute that plan, and maybe that's my wrong assumption, to move in a direction, but there's a variable, right? And that variable is that you may not have the same time that you had last year, or you may not have the same staff that you had last year. And in this instance, you may not have the same time, not because of what was agreed upon in negotiation about the time of being available, like professional development. You guys saying that professional development is increasing, but the board is saying, why are we not doing certain things?
I think I would just disaggregate what Mary Jude is talking about more generally in special education and the CSACE plan. And because the CSACE plan is a very narrow part of a much larger set of goals within the department. I think the CSACE work has been building upon it each year, right? I do think that's true. But I think more broadly in the district, our context is ever changing. And so the work isn't always linear. And I think that there are also many competing priorities that disrupt that linear growth.
Thank you. Board members?
The CCAS also restricts as far as the funding that needs to be spent to effectively execute the plan, correct?
Yes, there's very tight regulations around who you can spend the CSACE funds on.
Correct, but that's not additional funds, that's just carved out funds from our general fund.
Correct.
That's
Yeah,
right.
okay.
Yeah.
So that's important, right? You know, when we talked about historically, being in CSACE really locks up those funds for those particular programs. Hence why the investment in that, so that we can build out and address the student needs. Because at the core of CSACE, it's the particular student needs. And that can unlock the funding of that if we ever get out of the CSACE.
That's
designation.
correct. So 15% of our special ed funding has to be allocated to the program services and things that we are putting into our CSACE plan, which is for specific targeted students, not necessarily special education students.
That's 15% of the total special ed budget or the federal?
Federal.
Yeah, and in the public card. Yes. So CSACE almost takes general fund dollars and makes it restricted. Because now you have to allocate those dollars specifically for,
It's still restricted funds.
or it's still restricted funds.
It restricts it even further.
Correct.
It restricts it even further. Okay, thank you. Any questions?
So with the professional development and the teacher training for the teachers to be up to date and current, right? With
Dr. Naka, if you could be a bit more specific about, you're talking about professional development and special education, you're talking about professional development for teachers in general at the elementary, secondary level.
since we are talking about the special ed, so I'm being very specific about special ed. So with the training grants being slashed now, so what is it that's going to affect for our district going forward with the budget allocation for the training?
Can you clarify the training what being slashed?
Oh, the grants for the training for the teacher, yes.
So, Dr. Naka, you're referring to the federal grants on building teacher residencies. That's for building the teacher pipeline, so it's different. It wouldn't be something that we use for professional development, nor do we have any of those grants for professional development. We do have a teacher residency grant that we have in conjunction with San Jose State, and then also there's the K-16 Collaborative, which has a piece of it geared towards professional development and expanding teacher capacity and the ability to do dual enrollment classes and to be qualified at the community college level for teaching. But what
Not for the
the
special
funds you're
education.
referring to are not, don't play a part in this.
In the okay, thank you for clarification, yes. I mean, there were few of the comments, like even previously when I was mentioning, those thoughts were based on whatever comments that I read. And that's the reason I said we need more transparency. And it's not like, oh, my comments or, my thoughts, but then again, the transparency and probably I would urge that we can educate different groups of our educators as to how our budget is going to look like, especially towards the special education. There were few comments that, I went through for the neurodivergent kids. I mean, some of the teachers who have been with the district for over 2 decades, they had, something like tied up, which goes to building the culture of we. That was the reason of a deep dive for me to be able to understand the special ed. Thank you for the clarification.
We have public comment from Susan Moffett. Suzanne Moffett. Thank you. Suzanne.
Suzanne Moffett,
Got
Milpitas.
it. Hold on a moment. Scott, public comment. Thank you. 2 minutes. Thank you.
Suzanne Moffett, Milpitas High School special education teacher, and I do want to address the curriculum that we are working with our students on. I, for years, have spent many summers working on curriculum for special education students. I am a math essentials teacher, and we did design math curriculum based on the actual board accepted math curriculum in the general ed, and we pared it down. However, teacher with boots on the ground, you need to know that we as teachers are constantly having to bring down the work and adjust whatever is being teachered. We do need to meet standards, and for math, you actually have to be able to pass Algebra 1 in order to graduate high school with a diploma. So these are things that are constantly happening, and that's why these teachers are commenting that they spend all their time after school, hours on the weekends doing curriculum, because we have to constantly modify and address and adjust any curriculum that we have. And that's where this is coming from, is the hours and hours of time trying to meet our students' needs in order for them to get the curriculum that they deserve.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other comments?
Just to connect the two, and the hours of professional development versus the hours of, the work that needs to be involved for the students, is that unpaid or paid time? I mean, I just need that clarification.
So what I heard you say is that there's professional development and then there's the time that teachers work on curriculum. Is that considered professional development?
Correct.
I would say that there is professional development that is during their workday or they are paid after school. The modifications and the shifts that they make, I would say it's both. I would say that teachers do it during their prep periods. I would say that they likely are doing work after school as well. And some people probably have more. If you're a new teacher, it's gonna take you a lot more. If you're a veteran teacher, you might be able to, like Suzanne's been around for a while, she might be able to pull out something she knew she did last year with, oh, this is just like this student that I had, and she can pull something out. So I would say it's variable depending on the nature of the teacher who's working on it and the nature of the students and their needs that come to their classroom.
So, okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to follow up on that. So are all the teachers have the same opportunity for these PD, for the special needs training, or how does it work?
So professional development for our teams, for our special educators, whether you're a resource specialist or a special day class teacher, whether you're a speech pathologist, a psychologist, whether you're in preschool, elementary, secondary, or post-secondary, yes, everybody has an opportunity, the same opportunity to get training. For example, we had training using Goalbook this year in the fall. And what we did is instead of just having everybody come on the same day, we differentiated it out. We had secondary, separate from elementary and preschool. We looked at it from the standpoint of our extensive supports needs or our ESN classes for other training versus our mild mod. We do training specifically for certain job alikes. For example, one of the trainings we did, I believe it was in October for our resource specialist, was really looking at how do you as a resource teacher look at supporting students in a general education setting. What are those strategies and things that you need? Our speech pathologists have had separate trainings based on their particular needs. And so, for example, with them, we've been doing work around augmentative alternative communication. So they've gotten training for AAC, but not necessarily that is really designed for the work that they have to do. So it was not offered necessarily to all of the teachers. So yes, on some things, they all get the same training, but differentiated out. And no, on some trainings, it's specifically for the nature of the work that they are doing.
Are these trainings that PD that you send them to different locations, or are they like Zoom meetings? And who determines if it's mandatory or not?
If they're doing the day, they are mandatory because it's something that we're having the staff learn about, like Goalbook. Goalbook was mandatory for everybody because it is a tool that everybody is using, but it was differentiated out to be more specific to their needs. The AAC training, that is something that we signed up for. That is, they went to training and then we're bringing people in to support them. So that is different. Most of the trainings that we are doing with our staff are done internally by us. But there are trainings where we bring in the experts. For example, the Goalbook. I'll come back to that one again. Part of the contract that we have is that we look to say, hey, you're using this. We want to continue to support you in your learning around it. So we did one training last year. I think we had two parts to it last year as well, but I think we teased it out differently. And then this year we came back with another aspect of Goalbook. So if they're using the tool, they're learning the tool during their workday. But it is differentiated out based on how they will use it. Like a speech pathologist is going to use it differently than a psychologist who's going to use it differently than a resource teacher.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So access to the
Damon has
resources.
something? Hold on a second. Did you have something, Damon?
I just wanted to point you to the contract. So Article 6.26 talks about new program and assessment, implementation, training time. So it talks about all the things that the district needs to do, and then also talks about training that's longer than 2 hours is held during the teacher workday. And if they're held after school, such as a faculty meeting, that teachers would be compensated at the academic rate. So just backing up what Mary Jude said with the actual language of the contract.
Sorry, what does AAC stand for?
AAC.
Augmentative alternative communication. So this is different ways for people to communicate. Sometimes it's a device, sometimes it's a board book. Sometimes it's just an alternative way for more usually nonverbal or limited verbal individuals used to communicate.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So,
Dr. Naka.
yeah, thank you, President. So based on the resources that we have, like do the veteran teachers or the new teachers, when we are trying to talk about, the allocation of the budget for the training, how about, their pay scale? Like, do we consider doing a merit basis Or, can we do something like not the blanket, but the merit basis? Did we ever try and consider doing that as far as the pay scale, the raise, or even the professional development budget allocation?
Is that to me?
Anything,
I
anybody? Yeah.
I can say that I have not been aware of any merit-based programming or supports that I'm aware of in the district. For me personally, the way that we look at the training is based on the areas of need and then trying to differentiate by the area of the job alike so that, not one person is just sitting in a training that has to do with something that, they're not doing. So I've not done merits here in Milpitas.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, because there was one of the comment, President Norwood, that said also, all raises should be merit-based and not blanket for everyone. So that again would tie back to retaining our teachers in the district, again, because of the cost of living. People are not able to afford and stay local. And yeah, that kind of, ties into their professional development, their training, their resources that they are able to avail in the district too. And that was the reason of my question, and that's the reason I brought it up, because there was a comment.
Yeah, I think from a communication standpoint, there's two thought process. There's private organizations and public organizations. And as a public organization tasked with the education of all students, you can't really do merit-based from that standpoint, because then you start talking about high-performing teachers that only focus on high-performing students and not necessarily the students of need. And that's been historical from that standpoint, and thus why as a public education system, the merit-based compensation doesn't work, because we're trying to serve all students.
Just trying to have a different lens.
Yeah, I believe this is the public comment that you're referring to. I think the district needs to save money. If non-teaching staff is cut in MUSD, then teachers should get the raise and benefits. All raise and benefits should keep in mind all district in the Bay Area, California is running deficits. These things add up over time. All raises should be merit-based and not blanket for everyone. We are lucky not to have problems like other school districts. To keep it that way, we need to save money wherever possible. Again, these are just public comments, right? We receive it, we listen, we share it, whatever it is, but that's what they are, right? So I believe that was the genesis of that particular comment around understanding. Has there been any merit-based practices in the district? So thank you for sharing that information. Does anyone else have any additional public comments? I have another one, Rob.
So I have one, and another common theme that a lot of our teachers expressed in written and in verbal comments was basically clearly the high cost of living right here in the Bay Area. Now, I will say, as much as I would like to, we don't control that, right? I mean, the cost of eggs, we don't influence that one way or another. But having said that, it is important that as a district for its employees, we should have a clear understanding of what their needs are. If that's housing, certainly that's a big thing. I would ask, do we have a clear understanding of how many of our employees are in need of housing assistance? You know, how many people are in need of, I don't know, health is, additional health insurance is an issue, but we should have a good feel for what are the needs and see if there's anything that we can address. And I'm not saying we can, I'm just saying we should have an understanding of that. And as we are trying to work this together, we have to go figure out what we can do. That'd be my only suggestion in regards to the various comments that associate it with a high cost of living.
So here's a question in incorporating what Clerk Jung said. How do we know, is it does the district, I don't know we know that every year there's negotiation. We know that every year there's step and column increase. We know that these things happen every year. Is there ever an exchange or is there ever an information flow of the greatest concerns of the district to either their school site principals or who's ever at the district office? So when it comes to certain types of programs, they can either be invented or they can be made aware of. Like, for example, several years ago, Superintendent Jordan, she hosted an On the Table event, and that was about housing at Silicon Valley Community Foundation reached out and said, hey, we're doing these discussions around housing. Do you guys want to participate? We did one, and we heard from some teachers that came. They said, housing is not an issue for us. And they also asked about what type of housing are you referring to? Are you talking about buying housing? Are you talking about renting housing? So what I'm saying is that, is there ever a conversation with either through the associations or through the school sites or whatever it is to know some of these needs that are coming up or some of these things that are happening, like the special education information that we got, like a number of teachers saying, I can't afford to live here. Does that flow in this direction that the cabinet or the superintendent has the purview to be able to make recommendations or make recommendations to the board for us to consider taking some sort of action?
Yes, I think, well, one thing that I was thinking about today is how when I first became superintendent, I went to schools and sat in their staff rooms or the libraries and made myself open for people to come and talk to. And I was thinking today that would be something I would like to do again, perhaps with 2 board members present and with a mix of people. So in that way, it would be one way that I could draw from our team members directly what is on their mind and what they like us to continue to work on and what they would like for additional supports and what they feel is going well.
Could that be potentially categorized? So for example, I mean, is there, but besides just hosting the things, is there some sort of structure that could be complementary to some of these things that the board is learning about, so that we know that there's progress being made and that these public comments are being heard beyond the negotiation? I have one here. I, like many teachers in the district, have committed decades to the students and families. MLPDIS. I beg for curriculum in the CPC. What's that?
Curriculum Policy Committee.
The Curriculum Policy Committee, only to be blown off and have the money spent on AI instead of desperately needed science. Apparently the money we aren't receiving for a raise is there for the curriculum we are also not receiving. We ask for support for our struggling and neurodiverse students, only to be told there's no money for that. We lack librarians and other support staff, so we do their work as well. We're spending our own money on supplies such as crayons, as our classroom budget is $1 per month per student, hasn't changed in decades. We prep for our own prep now as well. We've been added to PE. We take on more with less, under the impression that we are doing noble work and honored and respected. What we are now is exhausted, and after a reply with no raise and incredibly inflated economy, we are angry and disrespected. We can't keep giving all like this and go home and worry about the price of milk, gas, and the electricity bill. The exhaustion can't be 24 hours a day. Please, and then please consider your stance. Again, part of it was negotiation, but the other part was so many other things about resources around the ability to do the work. So definitely open for comments.
First, yes, I could definitely gear those focus group conversations around specific topics. And I hear Preeti wanting to say something.
think I'm answering the question. So two things that I would add in addition to what Superintendent Jordan shared is the Local Control Accountability Committee is definitely one way that we do that, where we have parents, teachers, administrators, students, as well as district leaders on the committee, looking at, and classified team members, looking at what are the priorities for the district, right? We review data. So in our next meeting on March 24th, we're actually going to be looking at differentiated assistance data and saying our long-term English learners is a priority for our district. We're going to be looking at the feedback from the over 2,000 people that also let us know how they're feeling about academic programming, mental health programming, after-school programming, tie those things together. Here, look at evidence-based programs and make decisions about where to shift our funding or what to increase, decrease, move around, right? For example, last year, one of the recommendations that came from that committee was moving from one inclusion TOSA to two to make sure people, so that's just one small example. So that's one structural way that we are trying to gather input on how, where to focus the budget, right? I do also start off those meetings reminding people that the vast majority of the budget, like over 85% of it, is already dedicated to people. So the room we have to play is small. The second thing that I wanted to add is that we also, I'll speak for myself, but I'm doing this work in collaboration with the executive cabinet, are operating with a distributive leadership model. So before making budget decisions, especially around site allocations, this year, Dorothy and I met with all of our principals to understand what are their priorities, what would be the impacts of different shifts. We had small group meetings. We used our Wednesday Academy meeting time as well to review looking at our formula of how those allocations are developed, gathering their input in making changes around that. And last year, Damon and I did a similar process around that. So it's not inclusive of the entire MUSD community, but we're trying to operate through a distributive model, right? So that our principals gathering that feedback also from their staff or from their parent communities, filtering that up.
Damon?
Board members, I'm really struggling up here. I'm just going to be extremely honest with you. Cabinet has not had an opportunity to meet since the public comments, and so we haven't been able as a team to really dig in to what was shared and to have direct conversations with one another. So I'm careful about what I share here without having talked with my teammates about things that we need to work on. But I'll come back to the thing I mentioned earlier, which is there's a phrase that says, listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth, right? Believe me the first time. And that's what we saw on that day, was the frustration of, yes, they weren't happy with the 1% off offer, but the majority of it was their frustration with us as a district of not listening to them, of not bringing them to the table at the beginning when we come up with these ideas, talking to them. And I've talked to Cheryl about this several times since, but we haven't had a conversation about how to move forward. They want to partner with us. Kristen and I meet with MTA and CSCA once a month. We spend anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours. That's just that meeting. There are many other times that we're talking and being collaborative, and they're bringing issues, and we're trying to talk to the managers about the issues, but sometimes managers don't listen. That's the reality. They think that, oh, it's not exactly what it is, but what we're telling you is this is what they're telling us, and this is how we can fix the situation. And if we as administrators would just listen to the collaboration that they're wanting to have with us, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now. It's pretty easy.
So the situation that we're in now is we're learning from the comments that we received as a board and deciphering where we live and understanding everything else that we go through, right? That's the situation the board is in terms of understanding the role that we play in understanding the budget. And you bring up a great point, because one of the comments that we heard was compound COLA increases. I don't know what that is. I believe that was a public comment that was made. What is compound COLA increases? So is there such thing, Dorothy, is there such thing as compound COLA increases, or?
The way the COLA works for our LCFF is whatever our base funding from prior year, and we get COLA this year, that get added to our base. And that base becomes the new base for next year, and then whatever COLA get added. So it's not a rollover or compounding increases of that COLA from year to year. It's more of, if we get $1 this year, COLA is 10 cents, so our base is $1.10 next year. If we get additional 20 cents of COLA next year, then that $1.10 plus the 20 cents new COLA. So it changes the base funding, but it doesn't roll over that we get additional on top, but we just get the new whatever COLA for that year.
Right, and so we negotiate, or the district, you guys negotiate, right? The district negotiates each year in terms of compensation, and then there is some dollars that aren't negotiated because they're part of step and column that everyone gets, or not everyone. I can't speak to that 100% correctly, but I know that step and column means that there is compensation ongoing in the district for employees outside of negotiation. We have, Scott said that there's a public comment online.
Before we go to the
Hold on a
public
second.
comment,
Okay.
President Norwood, if I may, I appreciate Assistant Superintendent James, your comment. And I think this is where, as a superintendent, it's important that I share this position that we have as a governance team and executive cabinet. And I look forward to the time for us to discuss in executive cabinet the public comments, and I appreciate you sharing with me prior to that some of the insights that you did. And then I also look forward to talking about it with our association's roundtable, and also I too meet with each of our 2 leaders once a month. And I also have on this balance of the role that I carry, the opportunity to be a part of the governance team. And the only way that as a governance team we can talk about things is public. And so wanting to make sure that people know we're having this conversation, that's why I invited our association's leaders to be here. So it is kind of a tricky balance. We can't always do all of the things, all of the conversations in a way that it might seem would be helpful to individuals. We have to go within the parameters of the way public education runs in a public forum. And so I look at it as this is our opportunity to talk publicly with our, as a governance team, to have our community members listening online, watching later, as well as our association leaders here present with us, and also our community members over there who are helping us with the recording, and for our executive team to be able to participate in the conversation as well. And then we'll be able to also have our own conversation, and then again, one with the association. So I look at all as opportunities to talk, gather perspectives, and we might have different kinds of conversations than we would have prior, because now we have this additional conversation that we're having right now to add to the perspective.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Any additional comments from, we do have the public comment on online. Scott?
Michelle Egret has her hand raised. Michelle, please, you've enabled your audio. Please take yourself off mute. You have 2 minutes. Go right ahead.
Thank you. So I'm a CSEA member. I'm also part of the CSEA negotiating team. And I just wanted to address something that Mr. Norwood said. He asked if the district forwards information to the staff about opportunities, and I believe you said housing. They do come out periodically, but as one of the public comments that you have in your packet, we had a CSEA employee who saw something recently about low market housing, got all excited until she logged in and found out that her total income and her spouse's income, also an employee, wouldn't even meet the minimum criteria for the low housing market. A lot of our CSEA staff work 2, some even 3 jobs just to even live in this area. Another thing as far as that was mentioned earlier this evening is they talked about on schedule, off schedule, the 1%. We got offended by the off schedule. Off schedule, if they give you $100 off schedule, it becomes a bonus. It's a one-time only, and they take off almost 40% of the tax with taxes. So then you're left with $60. That's where the slap in the face came to us. We wanted on schedule so it would stay as a permanent month-to-month increase, and affected most of our employees at that time. I just wanted to differentiate between the two in case it wasn't clear what the difference was and why we wanted it one way versus another. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Damon, may I ask, have we ever had like a survey to our staff members to see, our educators and, other staff, where they're at, like our younger educators, and what, how best we can support them if we can't, like we can't control like the cost of living, we can't control, the COLA or how much money is going to the district, but there's other ways that we can support them. Like Superintendent, President Norwood and I, we've talked to consultants and to developers, right, to see how we can best support by, them building housings for our educators. I mean, that's one way that we can support, but, has there been a survey out there to see what is needed so that we can support them?
Not a specific survey in that direction. We do have an exit survey when employees are leaving, so we ask a couple of questions about why sometimes cost of living comes up. Sometimes they just indicate that they're moving or spouse got a job somewhere else. I think right now we just want to be cautious about surveys that we send out because we're trying to establish trust, and we need them to believe that the information they give us, we're going to do something with it. And I think that there's, based on conversations I've had with both groups, I think that there's some concern. Why should we fill it out? Because you don't listen to us anyway. And maybe they're nodding their heads, and they are.
I don't know, maybe an exit interview might be too late. They
But-
already,
But we do, but that has been helpful. I think President Norwood, when he was president the last time, he asked for that, and so we did start having people voluntarily fill that out as they're leaving. That analyst send it to them. So, right, Kristen?
In 2021, we did a housing-specific survey, we should do it again, but I was just now looking at it and 257 people responded to it. About 200 said they would be interested in affordable housing and especially affordable rentals if that was available.
But I think you had mentioned what other types of things could be done, because the housing is it's a big task, right? But some jobs, they have discount cards, and everybody that's an employee gets a discount gym membership or a discount at the grocery store or whatever. Like those little things also will help employees too. So reaching out to contacts. I remember when I worked with Robert at Weller, he was always finding ways for our staff to get freebies. Those types of things help too.
I can still do that.
This question about, I hear there's a lot of processes and things that are already in place that where there are committees and meetings. Do those committees and those meetings around in the district work, is there representation of all levels? For example, elementary and secondary, middle and high school? Like I know you guys have these meetings, and I know that I don't know what mandatory is. I don't know what isn't mandatory. But do you have representation? Because I know a lot of times when you're in these meetings, that's where the conversations happen, and then you assume that it gets out to other places, but it doesn't because there isn't enough folks that are in those meetings. So I guess I'm asking, in the committee meetings around things that are professional development, training, and those types of things, do you have good attendance, or is the schedule aligned with teachers' availability to the best of the district's possibility?
I think when it's during the day, they're here, so they're able to attend. I will say that this year in learning and development, we created a spreadsheet of all professional development every single month. And all of us have worked to put our professional development into it to ensure that we didn't do overlapping or that it didn't conflict with something major that was happening. I think that helped this year so that, it made it possible that we didn't like schedule safety care on the day that the TKK community of practice was happening, or we didn't put something where there was a teacher training on the same day that we have our monthly classified training. I didn't mention that earlier, but we do have all of our behavior intervention techs, our paras, and our transitional assistants. The second Wednesday of every month, they have an hour of training. And so as an example, like we tried to work together as a team to make sure that they were available and that they could attend during their workday. After school are optional, or they're part of a committee or something of that nature to attend those. So there's no forcing of an after school training per what Damon said according to the collective bargaining agreement. Did you have anything else to add, Preeti, on that?
Yes, I think as much as possible, we do try to make the times inclusive for all. There's competing priorities or needs as well, right? Something like the LCAP committee needs parents and teachers. The time that works best for teachers versus the time that works best for parents isn't going to line up, right? So there's tension points there. But we are very cognizant of having representation of our different school sites, different grade levels, different student groups that we are serving. And last year, the call for the LCAP committee went out to everyone. And this year, we started by saying those that were on the committee, would you like to return? And then doing more outreach to groups where we were noticing that representation wasn't there.
I would also add that we did receive feedback last year that trainings on Mondays and Fridays were really difficult because they were hard to get subs. So that was also part of the reason why we had the spreadsheet, because you can imagine with all the competing priorities and all the training that has to happen, we had to make sure none of us were overlapping on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays.
Thank you. Additional comments from the board?
I'll throw in my last one. I think it is extremely important to have a mechanism to allow the folks who are working closest to the students to provide feedback and have a mechanism so that they can say, I need help, and, oops, sorry, need help, and we have a mechanism to really try to do our best to make sure that they get that help. And then I think it is also important to be able to collect that data so that we can see if there's patterns or general areas where we could leverage each other. So I think it is extremely important, just to sort of piggyback on Damon's point of view, that it is, I think there is that break of communication, and I think the people who do the most work, that is closest to the work, probably has the best ideas in terms of how to solve the problem. Now, as leaders, we say, here's the problem, perhaps, and then we offer it to the people who's actually doing the work, and they can probably say, well, this is how we can do it. So I think there's a need to have more of that communication, and I think that would allow us to have more common sense or common level of understanding of what is needed and priorities and things like that. That's my last comment.
I think that was one of the reasons why the previous board had that strategic goal number 2, improve communication, right? How do you, and what I just learned today in terms of is that communication is complicated because there are competing, that's one thing that I'm taking away, is that in some of these things, there are competing priorities and how to work through those. And then there's availability, especially there's only so much time during the day, and we are a unified school district. So we have the little ones, we have then if you break it down, you have the TK, the third, intermediate, secondary, right? And how do you get them each individual what they need on both sides, not just the teacher side? Well, they're all educators, right? The teachers as well as classified. So how do you get everybody what they need in a timely manner throughout the course of the year? Plus they have lives, moms, dads, brothers, sisters, parents, all those other things. This has been, well, for me, through this conversation, it's been really helpful to understand a different level of the complexity of the work. So I want to thank you all for what you guys have shared in terms of these comments. When it comes to the concerns that I had about the public comments and some of the things that you guys are suggesting. We have a public comment, Brett Weber.
Good evening, school board, executive cabinet. My name is Brett Weber. I serve as first vice president of Milpitas Teachers Association. I am also lead negotiator at the moment. It's not really comment on anything that was said specifically, but I do want to thank the board and executive cabinet for taking the time to read the 79 public comments. Judging by your comments this evening, your questions, it is very apparent that you have paid acute attention to what was said, and to take the time to set up this meeting and to discuss this is appreciated, and we would like to note that. Also have a question, and I know that you probably can't respond, but since they were comments, they were public comment, will those 79 public comments be made public? Are they somewhere? I looked, didn't see them, but I'm not very technological. So, but your time this evening, your comments, your conversation is appreciated. Thank you.
Superintendent Jordan, would you like to
Can
respond?
we, yeah, and that's the same thing, I think.
We could attach them to the board agenda and
Why,
when
why
we
not
post the minutes. And Scott shared with me that there actually were a few more that came in, so it's more than 79 now. It's probably like 85 or so.
Just
Yeah.
just a clarification. I mean, normally public comments, aren't they attached to the minutes?
If it's a written public comment, no, we haven't been attaching them to the minutes, but that is something I think also as we look to the new school year coming ahead is to look at our written public comments and how we want to do that going forward, because some school districts, they take the written public comments and they post them, but they don't acknowledge them publicly. Some send them directly to the board members. Others, like us, try to address them publicly. But those are new parameters that we can discuss and determine how we want to do that, probably at our next board superintendent retreat.
This is related to the comments, but it's more of a question. I guess I'll say on behalf of our group. Sometimes during board meetings, the board and board member will mention something. We'll take it as it's an initiative, and our team takes it and runs with it, even though we know that our stakeholders are not in support of it because they're putting their energy into another initiative. And we're not able to really dialogue about it, and so it creates complication because we feel like we're doing what we were told to do, even though we're butting heads against a group that's saying too much on plate, and why didn't you involve us in the conversation before this initiative got thrown at us? And so I'm asking, in the future when there are things that come up, if you could dialogue with us about how we will work with our the people at the ground about the initiative. And so I'll use the hot button right now is AI, right? If you mention AI to our staff, they have a certain reaction. And so just thinking about moving forward, like just how to dialogue with us.
Are you referencing the AI task force?
AI task force, how is AI being used in the classroom? You know, like when you say that to Preeti and Mary Jude, that is now a priority. So then they communicate to the staff, please tell us how you're using AI in the classroom. That becomes another task for them, right? Oh gosh, I have to use AI in the classroom. And now we've broken a bridge in that relationship that we're building. And it may not be that that's the intention, but that's how we receive it and we move forward. So I'm just
So
asking.
I think that what we need to do is talk more about it in executive cabinet. And the AI task force is actually meant to gather information from people. And that's going to be fed into the tech plan, which then provides more direction around AI. So that was the initiative from the board, is to create an AI task force, and that is involving stakeholders in that process. But the other things I hear you saying is like just the comments and then wondering where do we go with that? And then as superintendent, that's something that we can talk about.
Yeah, that how that information from the board gets translated into execution on the district side and the timeline of it. Point taken. Thank you.
And also, I'm not blaming anyone. I just want,
If everyone doesn't know by now that we're all doing the best that we can with what we have to make sure that we provide the best quality education and resources for the teams, and there are multiple teams, right? There's parents, there's board, all the teams in the district, right? Then they're not really paying attention to what we're trying to do here, or what we are building here in the Milpitas Unified School District. So thank you for pointing that out. It is
I do have
12.
one-
I want to circle back, be mindful of everyone's time, and
I don't think we addressed the Measure Q, the parcel tax.
Okay.
There were several comments that referred to the parcel tax as district getting additional money to afford potential raises. However, when we looked to approve the parcel tax, it was to cover the future deficit spending and potential cuts in our district. And so to prevent certain cuts to certain positions, that's why we asked the community to invest as far as in the parcel tax.
right. So if someone wants to, superintendent, you want
Sure.
to speak to that?
There are actually, so yes, to prevent cuts specifically for those areas that we added personnel with COVID funds, health clerks, counselor at Milpitas High School, something else, I'm forgetting what it is. That was the impetus, and then we added to it also because of the need to invest time into learning about AI and technology and how we can embed more technology into our workplace as well as instruction, because now with AI it can help to take some of the workload off, so we have more time to address to the things that are important to us and the interpersonal communication pieces. And then there was also the other aspect of mental health for our learners and also our team members. And then there is also to retain and recruit qualified, certificated, and classified team members. So that was all part of it, and that's all listed on the resolution. It was also listed on the door knockers and all of the communication that I did with different stakeholder groups.
So we do have information published about what Measure Q was supposed to do and how it's going to be spent. That's going to be
Right.
clear. And then is there a parcel tax oversight committee?
Yes, we will be advertising for the new parcel tax oversight committee in May, June, because we don't receive the funds until next school year.
And what is the representation of that committee?
There's specific requirements by law, and off the top of my head, there needs to be parents, a senior community member, a taxpayer community member, and I don't recall the others.
Is there any recommendation for staff or for anyone else on, again, this is the informal.
Yeah, not by regulations, but certainly what we have done traditionally is we include association leaders.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. You're saying we have or have not included?
We do. We
Oh,
include
okay.
association leaders. They don't always attend, but they are on the invite list.
Got it. Okay.
Does that answer your question, Trustee No?
Yes. Again, I felt like that was a common theme in some of these public comments, and we hadn't addressed that yet.
Awesome, thank you. All right, any last comments?
Shall I?
I mean, we're gonna prepare to
You're gonna wrap it up.
So-
Okay, so you know, I heard a lot of comments around teachers aren't appreciated. So I can't speak for anyone else, but for those who know me and for those who say that teachers are not appreciated, I'm gonna clarify that I believe all of our teachers do above and beyond what they're being asked to. And I personally appreciate those teachers to do that work. Now, we have limitations, so we have to live within those limitations. But I'm going to just put it out there. If there's any doubt that as a board member that I don't appreciate those teachers, I want to make it clear, all of our teachers do above and beyond many other teachers in other districts. So I am proud to have you guys on our district, in our district, sorry.
Thank you, Trustee Jones. Any other comments?
No, I just want to include not just all teachers, but, all of our CSEA members too, from, the secretaries, the custodians. I mean, we work together collaboratively, we appreciate every single staff member. And, together is, we're going to storm through these challenges together. That's how we're going to get through it. So I want to say thank you so much for your time, for listening to us, listening to you guys. We're going to get through this, and we want to listen to you more. So moving forward, let's listen to one another, and before we attack or somebody mention. And so I want to say thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Board. Thank you, Vice President Yip Chuan. Trustee No, Dr. Naka, any comments?
Yeah, I would like to thank and big kudos to each and every person of our district. I mean, not just the teachers, not just the association members, each and every one of them. I mean, I have, the personal connections and, relationships that I have built over years with my girls in the district too. So it means a lot. It definitely takes a lot to be able to give so much on a daily basis. And every effort counts, and we are here to acknowledge, and we are here to help each other. And that's exactly what is the work that I have signed up here, and that's what I'm trying to do here. So there are some, misconceptions. There needs to be more transparency, I guess. And if there are any issues with regards to the culture of we, the inclusion, which was one of the major areas in the comments that I have read through. So it's only a matter of time we can make things happen. And we will get through this, and this is definitely a collaborative effort with each of our hands in this. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
And
Dr.
I
Naka.
mean every word that I said. Thank you,
Dr.
President Norwood.
Trustee No.
Just to reiterate what I said earlier tonight, we need every single employee in this district. Everything that we set forth as goals or mission statements as a board really reflects what we've listened throughout the years from our community in service to our students. And I appreciate everyone's ability to really come to the table and talk about how we can improve our student outcomes. And that's through the value of the staff and employees that we have in the district. Everyone from our classified staff, our teachers, to our administrators, to our district office, and our volunteers as well, because we can't run effective school district without everyone involved. And so I appreciate that. I think we learn together because we're in education, and we grow together. And so there's always possibilities as we continue to navigate year in, year out. The limited funds that we have to provide the best education possible in Milpitas.
Thank you. Are there any comments from Executive Cabinet as we go to wrap up?
I would like to thank the board for calling this special meeting and having the conversation about the various statements that were written and or stated. And I know we all love this district, and I know one of you said this is part of that culture of we is getting through the conflict and having the real conversations. So I appreciate that, and thank you for it.
Superintendent.
I, as I was listening to Damon talking about opportunities for executive cabinet to speak, and then listening to myself talk about it, I was thinking about our other districts that I am aware of, and I know that they too have strong board staff relationships, but I think we're pretty unique in our ability to take opportunities like this to grow stronger together. And that this is, to me, as Trustee Jung said, living the culture of we and building it, because it's not a thing, as you said it last Tuesday, it's something that we aspire to. And by continuing to be open to each other, we can continue to keep that aspiration alive. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Scott, are there any other public comments before we?
There are no other public comments at this time.
Awesome. I appreciate the comments. I heard together a number of different times, and together's different stakeholder groups, together's different times, together's different discussions, together is us understanding as a board, one, in addition to our ability to, or the obligation that we have to govern, is that to continue to go above and beyond, continue to try to find resources, continue to have conversations outside of the district with the elected officials and those types of things, so that we can continue to bring resources here. Because if we understand what the budget says, we always know that we can always strive to do a bit more than what we do, based on what the state says, by bringing in a number of resources however we can, because it matters to the teachers. There was some comments about possibly how to activate PTAs even stronger at the school sites to support the teachers at the school sites, or even the classified. And just the final comment is that it is both classified as well as certificated. It is all classified, certificated, and management working together on this. So again, we thank you all for being here. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn, and there's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.